So folate is a B vitamin, actually sometimes referred to as vitamin B9. And as a B vitamin, it plays a major role in energetics. So it helps the body to generate energy, ATP from carbohydrates, fats, and other macronutrients like protein, etc. So it's very, very important in those things. But we'll come to some of that. Let's cover what to look for. So, people that have folate deficiency, these are some of the most common symptoms associated with low folate. And you'll see some of these, they're not really diseases per se. They're kind of what we would call the preclinical, like the things that happen to a person before they really start to manifest major or serious disease-based side effects. So again, in this case, we've got swollen tongue. This also, so if you've ever noticed that your tongue gets a little fatter, a little bit thicker, that's folate. That can be a folate deficiency. Now, additionally, you can see the image right up here, the cracks in the corners of the mouth. That's called angular stomatitis, the fancy name or the fancy way of saying that. But this can occur as a result of folate deficiency. Also can occur as a result of iron deficiency and vitamin B2, but folate, very, very common. Now, these are some of the early warnings that this is happening with you. Mouth ulcers are another one. So if you've ever had the aphthous ulcers or the blisters form inside the mouth or around the lips, that can be a symptom of folate deficiency as well. And this next one's a big one, depression. Now, some people would say, well, Dr. Osborne, depression is a disease, and you're right, but a lot of people have subclinical or preclinical depression. So in essence, before they seek out medical care, they just find themselves in a depressed state without really realizing or without really feeling like it's really hindering them to a great degree. But research on depression, and this is true of those of you who've ever taken SSRIs, these are medicines like Paxil or Prozac. SSRI, that stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. But these medications, there's some research studies that show that these medications are not effective unless you add folate to them, which begs the question, is it the drug that's working or is it the folate that's working? We'll talk about why this happens here in just a minute, and part of it has to do with folate's role in the production of the chemical serotonin. Forgetfulness can also be a symptom of folate deficiency. So if you've ever struggled with word recall, you know the word, your brain knows it, but you can't bring it to the lips, this can be a sign of folate deficiency, but also just not remembering very well. You got to put up little sticky notes on the refrigerator, around the house so that you remember to do basic fundamental things. Diarrhea as well. Now, this is particularly true in those individuals who've gone through chemotherapy. And I bring this up because maybe some of you are struggling with cancer and you're on some type of chemotherapeutic regimen. You have to understand that chemotherapy leads to a reduction of folate. And this is one of the reasons why chemotherapy tends to cause diarrhea or gastrointestinal issues. It's because the plugs can inhibit the body's ability to absorb and to generate folate. And so one of the hallmarks nutritionally to help a person with chemotherapy who's having chronic diarrhea is to actually give them higher levels of folate to help appease some of the gastrointestinal symptoms associated with taking that chemotherapy. So if you're here and you're struggling here, maybe you want to consider folate in your regimen to help with that. Because remember, if you've got cancer and you've got diarrhea as a result of the chemo, what comes after diarrhea? Malnourishment, vitamin and mineral deficiency. Well, what do you need to recover from cancer? Good nutrition, good vitamins, good minerals. So if the same drug that you're using to treat it is creating malnutrition, you end up in a vicious circle. Now, another symptom of folate deficiency, kind of early clinical, numbness and tingling. And this could be numbness and tingling in the hands, numbness and tingling in the feet, what some doctors refer to as neuropathy. If it gets severe enough, it can become debilitating, extremely painful. I mentioned poor memory along with forgetfulness earlier, and then as well confusion. And this is particularly true. We see this in the elderly. We'll see them start to lose their ability cognitively to think clearly. They get confused more easy, and this can oftentimes be as a result of folate deficiency because many of the drugs that the elderly are taking are actually inhibited by, or actually not inhibited by, but many of those drugs inhibit the way that folate works in the body, and that can lead to that confusion. And then as well, insomnia. One of the functions of folate here is it helps to convert serotonin. It methylates serotonin into melatonin. So I ran out of room here. Let's see here. Melatonin. There we go. So in essence, we also make melatonin through sunlight. Sunlight exposure to the eyes helps our body optimize melatonin production. But biochemically, we need folate to be able to do that. So some people don't sleep as well because of folate deficiency, because they can't convert serotonin into melatonin very effectively. Remember, both folate is necessary for this conversion, but folate is also necessary, generally speaking, for the production of serotonin. So very important nutrient with a lot of different side effects. Now I want to draw a diagram for you because I want to kind of show you. A lot of you, again, number one topic request, have asked about folate. And what I'm drawing you is the methylation cycle, or at least a very rudimentary approach to drawing the methylation cycle. But many of you have the MTHFR mutations. There are different kinds of MTHFR mutations. We're not going to get into those tonight, but many of you have this MTHFR. You've had this test done, and you've either got an A to C or a T to C mutation, and your doctor has said, hey, with that mutation, it increases your risk of having problems associated with lower levels of folate. And so I want you to kind of understand how this works. So if we look at these three circles represent the methylation cycle, and in this center cycle we've got MTHFR, which stands for methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. This is an enzyme that helps turn folate and activate it. It activates folate into its most biologically active form, and what happens is, so MTHFR forms methylfolate. Now, I'm not going to get too technical or too chemical, but I just want you to know methylfolate is the folate, the natural folate that helps to spin this wheel. And that's what I want you to think. This is like, almost think of it like a water wheel, and folate spins it around. And when this wheel spins, it helps to spin this wheel, and it helps to spin this wheel as well. So we've got a wheel. These wheels are like cogs in a clock. You know, when one cog turns, it helps the other cogs turn as well. And so this center wheel, which is folate driven, folate dependent, is so crucial for the function of methylation. What is methylation? Methylation, let's just kind of simply say, methylation is a process by which the body can aid in detoxification, and the body can aid in the production of neurochemicals and aid in the repair of cells, right? So if this cycle is broken as a result of folate deficiency, there's a lot of problems that can crop up. I'm going to share some more of those problems with you here in just a minute, but I want to draw this out because I want you to understand this. So methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase is an enzyme, and some people have a mutation, okay, a genetic mutation or a DNA mutation, sometimes referred to as a SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism. And so if you have one of these, then this cycle is less efficient. It doesn't work as well. Now, part of this cycle, you've heard me talk about this chemical a number of times, but there's a chemical called homocysteine. And homocysteine is an independent risk factor, and it can cause and contribute to heart disease, cancer. It can contribute to diabetes. It can contribute to bone loss, among other things. But homocysteine, this is a wheel right here. This wheel converts homocysteine into methionine. Now, methionine is a very important amino acid. And again, you need folate to do that, to convert homocysteine into methionine. Methionine goes on to make new DNA and to make new RNA. So you need that methionine for healing and for repair and for body maintenance. It's very, very critical that we can do this. Now, another offshoot of this is homocysteine is not just converted into methionine and then DNA and RNA repair, but it also helps to produce bile acids, which aid in detoxification, and it also helps to produce glutathione, which many of you have heard of. Glutathione is the master antioxidant. It's what your liver uses to basically break toxins down and make them water soluble. So two very important offshoots of this methylation cycle are bile acid production and glutathione. So many people struggle in this area because this hinders or slows down their detoxification. And then we have this wheel or this cycle over here. And in this cycle, what happens is this cycle helps to convert tyrosine, which is an amino acid, okay, and tryptophan, which is also an amino acid. Amino acids are building blocks from protein, right? Tyrosine helps to form dopamine, which is a neurochemical. It's a happy chemical, makes your brain happy, makes you have good thoughts. And tryptophan helps you make serotonin. So just a minute ago when I was talking about serotonin and melatonin and folate's role in memory, etc., it's because of this, right? We need that folate to drive the production of serotonin and dopamine. And again, these are primary neurochemicals that allow you to have happy thoughts. This is why when we come back over here and we look at the symptoms of folate deficiency, what do we see? We see depression, right? Because if you can't make serotonin and dopamine efficiently, depression can set in, and this can really wreak havoc on a person's health. So this methylation cycle is very important. And the reason why I even demonstrate that is because many of you come to me and say, hey, Dr. Osborne, I have this Mthfr mutation. Can you help me understand better what that means? Here's what it means. If your gene is mutated, then this pathway, your ability to make homocysteine convert to methionine for new DNA and RNA, your ability to make dopamine, serotonin, and to produce glutathione, all those things are hindered. They're slowed down. They're reduced. It doesn't mean your body can't do it. It just means your body's less optimized. It also means that you might need to really focus more on your diet and your dietary sources of folate. And we'll talk about those here shortly in just a minute as well, because if you're not getting adequate folate and you have one of these genetic mutations, it can really start to create bigger problems for you. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.